breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season, occasionally Wednesday if it's Christmas week or New Year's week next week. And we're brought to you by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Ross Brendel, does a fantastic job getting all of our clips together, all of our interviews, and getting us on the air this Christmas week. And Ross, interesting matchup come Thursday, come Christmas Day. The Lions coming off a crushing loss to the Steelers, last second offensive pass interference call on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Game over. Steelers shocked the Lions, and the Lions were shocked to lose that game and really put themselves in a bad position playoff wise. They have to win their last two games against the Vikings this week and then at Chicago, and have the Packers lose their last two games against Baltimore on Saturday night and then back here against the Vikings next week in order for the Lions to return to the playoffs. And we're talking about, amazingly to me, two teams a year ago plus a week. These two teams were 14-2 entering the finale with all the marbles for the division title, for the number one seed in Detroit. 14-2 both teams. We know how that one turned out. Not so well for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. And now this year, the Lions 8-7, have lost two straight, 3 out of 4. The Vikings have won 3 straight, but eliminated previously because of too many tough losses earlier in the season, too many injuries for both teams. The Lions secondary has been decimated. They've lost Pro Bowl players, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, starting corner Terry and Arnold. The Vikings, we know the difficulties they'd had on the offensive line, which continued last week with Christian Darrisaw out. Now for the season, he's out with that knee, and Ryan Kelly with his third concussion. Offensive line, again, reshuffled as it's been most of the year, and other injuries that affected the team on defense. Van Ginkel, Grenard, Cashman going way back. So it's been a tough year for both teams, but that's life in the NFL, Ross, as we know. And you look this year and you see teams like the Bears, the Patriots, the Panthers, the Jaguars. They were all losing teams last year. This year, it looks like they're all headed to the playoffs, several as division champs.
Every year you see it in the NFL. Teams from the previous year that performed well missed the playoffs. Also, those same teams from the previous year that looked lost and defeated tend to be pretty good the following year. You know, the NFL, I think the playoff turnover ratio, Jeff, is right about 50%. Maybe it's slightly even more than that when it comes to teams that participated one year and not in the next. How about this opportunity for the Minnesota Vikings? I'm not saying they're going to do it, but in back-to-back weeks, they do have the opportunity to either end teams' seasons in their division or make their road in the playoffs or their road to the playoffs that much difficult. The Vikings may have a chance to beat Green Bay and render them the 6 or 7 seed, and the Vikings have a chance to knock Detroit out of the playoffs. I know it's not really what you want to play for, but Jeff, I know you've been there with teams before. I think that this is what the players will use as motivation to help try and win the game. Whether they do or not, that's anybody's guess at this point. But it is a fun opportunity, especially knowing that independent of who plays at quarterback, Jeff, my hunch is we're not going to know that until right up to kick. They could surprise us. But it's a fun opportunity here, and the team's playing better. So I'm looking forward to checking out these final 2 games and seeing what comes of them.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, J.J. McCarthy, we expect that to be not determined probably for at least 24 hours. But we'll see. We'll see what the decision is there. I'm sure that Kevin O'Connell wants him to play if he's able to play, get another game of experience. He's been playing well the last 3 games on this 3-game winning streak, including last week against the Giants where his stats, he ends up with a 58 rating, but if Naylor, Addison, and Jefferson don't have drops, including Addison for a touchdown and Naylor that turns into an interception, all of a sudden that 58 rating would have been about 140. So it's just, you know that Kevin O'Connell wants McCarthy to get in there. If it's Max Brosmer, at least he's got the confidence to know that he completed a huge 3rd and 17 against the Giants to set up the winning field goal. He doesn't have to think as much about that 4 interception game in Seattle, but the Lions are going to come after him. The Lions sacked McCarthy 5 times last game, and we go back to that Week 9 game. We're going to look at or hear a couple of clips from that game, and hear the Lions folks talk about that game. Not a shining moment for Detroit, losing at home. They had a 5-game winning streak over the Vikings going into that Week 9 game, and JJ McCarthy led a 27-24 win in Detroit. I'm sure he'd like to have another shot at the Lions, at the team in the city where he played his college football at Michigan. So there's a lot of subplots to this week, and I'll give you one more, Ross. The Pro Bowl teams were announced today. The
Yes.
Vikings
Yep.
were snubbed with no Pro Bowl selections 1 year after having 7 players go to the game. No Pro Bowl selections for the Vikings. The Dallas Cowboys, who they beat 2 weeks ago, had 5 players picked. The Lions had 5 players picked. The Vikings shut out, and there were several good candidates. I'll tell you one for sure. Kicker Will Reichert should have made it over Brandon Aubrey, who he outkicked in Dallas 2 weeks ago. Aubrey missed 2 kicks. Reichert made the big kick to seal the win for 53. He's been great all year. He kicked a record 59-yarder in Lambeau. Has 2 missed kicks all year. One of them probably hit a wire in London. That's a big time snub. And there were other guys. Eric Wilson's had a Pro Bowl caliber year, probably Blake Cashman too. Thinking about Jalen Redmond, perhaps. Now he's a lesser known guy, but what a great year he's had, and had another big game in New York last week. So I think that Kevin O'Connell may use this as some fuel to further incite his troops come Thursday late afternoon against the Lions. No Pro Bowl players for the Vikings. And hey, we know Justin Jefferson should always be on a Pro Bowl team, regardless of whether his quarterbacks can't get him the ball.
Do you miss, Jeff? First off, I think the Vikings will get a guy or two there as players drop off. But they should have had some guys named, especially Will Reichert, even Ryan Wright. I love that we're breaking down the special teams here. That's how off the rails the season's gotten, Jeff. But I do have a couple. Quick things for you, okay? And I want you to attack both really quickly if you can. Do you miss the old days of the Pro Bowl actually playing a game, and then going way back to something you said 3-4 minutes ago? You alluded to all the drop passes with the Minnesota Vikings. You have assembled rosters. You look at these guys, because Justin Jefferson owns a part in this too. You look at Justin Jefferson, you look at Jordan Addison, you look at Jalen Naylor to a lesser extent. You know these guys could catch passes. If you're a general manager that put this roster together, or the coaching staff, it has to drive you absolutely crazy, all the drops, because you know these guys don't drop the ball. In baseball, they say hitting's contagious. Drops have to be contagious in the NFL. They just have to be.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And it's just been the Vikings, one of the most dropsy teams in the league this year. Jordan Addison has 8, which is the second or third most in the league.
And he missed 3 games because he was suspended.
Yeah, and you're talking about a guy who has so much talent. It's just concentration. It's somewhat cold weather, somewhat new quarterback throwing fastballs, a lot of factors. But Jordan Addison has to catch that ball in the end zone. That's a touchdown last week. Jalen Naylor, if he's going to drop the ball, don't bobble it to the other team. And so, yeah, just so many factors that have contributed over time. And part of the reason the Vikings lead the league with 29 giveaways. And that's going to be one of the big factors this week, because they come in with that -14 turnover ratio, and they're going against a team that's +10. So it's going to be certainly that's going to be one of the big factors in the game. Let's go to a couple audio highlights, and then we're going to hear from some of the main principals in the game. First, we're going to go back to last week. I mentioned Jalen Redmond. He had his sixth sack of the season. This guy, what a great year he's had. He's been the best defensive lineman on a team with some high priced guys. But he undrafted, second on the team to Eric Wilson in sacks with 6 sacks, leads the defensive line with 58 tackles, 11 tackles for loss. And here was his sixth sack of 2025 on a fourth down play on the Giants' early drive.
Don't want to put Jackson Dart in harm's way. This is going to be a pass right here.
Play clock winding down. Giants get the snap away. Dart on fourth down, wrapped up and sacked.
The Lions last week, I mentioned, just a crushing loss to the Steelers. Came down to the finale. Detroit did not play well defensively in the game. They gave up 230 rushing yards, which is going to be an obvious key this week, whether it's McCarthy or Brosmer in there. The Vikings are going to want to run the ball. They had some success last week against the Giants, and they outrushed Detroit 142-65 in that earlier meeting this year, which is really a key part of getting that win. But going back to last week for the Lions, they had 2 offensive pass interference penalties late in the game, and here was the last one on the final play.
Can they pull it off with the season in the balance? Goff fires at the 1. He didn't get across, but there are flags down. Ball ends up in the hands of Goff. He goes across. Did they have a whistle first?
There's so many things on this level that I just saw. Could be offensive pass interference. Actually, what a major call.
The ruling on the field is a touchdown. However, pass interference under 14 on the offense. By rule, that penalty is not enforced, and there is no replay. The game is over.
Wow.
There is no touchdown.
Whoa!
OPI on number 14 negates the penalty. There is no replay. The game is over.
You know, say what you want, Jeff. Rants. Nance and Romo, always entertaining, whether they're legitimately calling the game or not. That's the NFL never disappoints. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, for sure. And how about the referee saying it's a touchdown, but and the crowd go, yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I think the NFL office probably told them, don't say touchdown before you say OPI.
Or maybe they wanted him to sell the drama a little bit. You know, it's an entertainment product.
They sure did, definitely. And as I said, difficult loss for Detroit. Jared Goff threw for 364 in the game, but the Lions only rushed for 15 yards against the Steelers. Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 carries for 2 yards, and he was held by the Vikings to 9 carries for 25 yards in that first game, which was really a key part of getting that win to contain a Pro Bowl running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. And furthermore, they sent Wilson and Cashman on repeated blitzes at Goff, and Gibbs couldn't pick them up, and he got pulled from that game. They put David Montgomery in more often. Great way to get a great player off the field, and I'm sure Brian Flores is going to do that a bunch this week and go after Gibbs when he's in pass protection. So watch for that. But going back to that Week 9 game, Vikings 27-24 in Detroit, J.J. McCarthy had a big touchdown run in the game.
McCarthy in trouble again. Looking, thinking about running, going to try for it. McCarthy in. Touchdown, Minnesota.
He showed some good wheels on that play and some good mobility, the kind of things that the Vikings were hoping to see repeatedly this year. When the Vikings won that game, Ross, they were 4-4 at that point, and maybe a game or 2 out of first place. And we were thinking, okay, now they're going to start to roll. They had 2 home games coming up against Chicago and Baltimore, and lost them both in difficult fashion, and then got blown out by Green Bay and Seattle. That 4-game losing streak before the 3-game winning streak kind of sealed their doom. But when they beat Detroit, it looked like that was the team that we kind of expected this year, and to get that win in Detroit. That same game, one of the huge plays in the game on special teams, Levi Drake Rodriguez blocks a Lions field goal in the fourth quarter with 6:26 left. That would have pulled Lions within 4. Instead, Isaiah Rodgers returned to 41 yards and then set up a kind of a insurance field goal for the Vikings.
Kick is blocked. It is picked up by Minnesota too. It looks like Isaiah Rodgers, who already has 2 touchdowns on defense on the year, picks it up. Big return in Minnesota. What a play.
On that ensuing drive, then McCarthy hit Naylor for a big first down and kind of ended the game. And I think we were all very surprised that the Vikings got out of Detroit with that win. But we're going to hear from some of the principals, as I said, Max Brosmer, Aaron Jones, Dan Campbell, Jared Goff. Ross and I are going to make our predictions. We're going to go around the NFL, some big games coming up this weekend in Week 17. First, let's hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication, a dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering, to building upon prior knowledge year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade, well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 crew cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,692. See your Select Minnesota GMC dealers. Only on 5.3-liter V8 engine for purchase allowance. Length of contract limited. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/26. Max Brosmer, the former Gopher quarterback, came in. He wasn't asked to do a lot. They knew the defense was playing a fantastic game, holding the Giants to 141 yards, holding Jackson Dart to 13 net yards passing. And so Max didn't have to do a lot, but he did have to deliver that big 3rd and 17 pass to Justin Jefferson for 21 yards. That set up the winning field goal. And he talked this week about that conversion and also just about getting ready to go possibly this week.
Jets ran a great route. I think starting number 1 with the protection up front, we had a great, thud and chip on both sides by tight end and CJ over there on the right side, and the O-line, they couldn't protect it better. And making that throw is a lot easier when you have great protection up front against a really good front too. And so those guys, took it, with what we have, the play call, blocked their butts off, and Jets made a great. I'm talking about the catch he made at the sideline. It's a great catch. Him or nobody throw, and he made a great catch to make it right, and ended up getting points on that drive. And Will Reichard, Will the Thrill Man, he's a heck of a guy to have on your team. So. It all came together. Again, it's a community, it's a team thing, not just a one-play thing. And that drive was great to get points.
If you are the quarterback on Thursday, where does the week start for you? When do you begin prep? How long do you enjoy this win?
Yeah, it just goes back to just normal preparation. It's not, thinking too far in the future. What's going to happen. For me, it's a short week, and just like the last time we had a short week, it was right to work. And so we're going to get on this bus and this plane and start watching film. And I'm still learning how that Thursday game works, coming from college. And so I know JJ was feeling the same thing last time we had a Thursday game. And so, we're going to get together as a group, make sure we're prepared as a team, and get ready to go 1-0.
Interesting stuff there, huh, Jeff? The comments about both he and JJ learning how to deal with the Thursday game.
Yeah, and I think that Max will have a better outing if he's forced to play this week. We know the Vikings want McCarthy to play, but if he can't go, I think that Max will play better than he did, obviously, in Seattle. It's a much different defense. Seattle, one of the top defenses in the league. The Lions have struggled on defense this year, 25th against the pass, 16th against the rush, 23rd overall. And so I think that certainly the biggest storyline of the week to watch the quarterback situation, how that unfolds. But we'll see how that plays out. Aaron Jones really, I think, showed us all a lot of guts in that Giants game when he fought through the ankle injury. Knew Jordan Mason was out with an ankle and hung in there. Ended up with 85 yards rushing. Had a huge 9-yard run on 3rd and 8 to kind of seal the game at the end with some really great blocking by the offensive line, by the way, including Michael Juergens, who sealed off Dexter Lawrence, an all-pro, on that play. But Aaron Jones just talking about learning how to win and kind of the lessons from this season.
We're learning, we're growing. You always have your ups and downs, but who's to say? They were out of the playoffs. I was with the Packers at the time, knocked us off, and they go on to win the division. What was it, maybe 2 years in a row? But it started in this time. I feel like when they couldn't make the playoffs, when they like we're still playing, we're still building, we're growing for next year, and building those building blocks. And I say as a team, sometimes you have to learn how to win.
And I think he's right about that, especially in talking about the quarterback, the young quarterback, and just how things have happened through the season. So we'll see how it shakes out on Thursday. The Lions, hard to predict how they're going to react. They know they have a very slim chance to make the playoffs, but there's no chance if they don't win on Thursday. So I'm sure that Dan Campbell will have them cranked up for this game, but it's still tough to travel on a short week. And I think the funny part of that, the ironic part of that, is the Lions have benefited from that with the Thanksgiving Day game forever. And now maybe it's payback that now they have to go on a short week and travel. It makes it tougher. And on Christmas week, Christmas Day, very difficult on the team. But sometimes teams bond in that situation. I remember we had that way back in my early years. We had a playoff game in San Francisco. The calendar was condensed a little bit, and we had kind of Christmas dinner in Tucson, Arizona, Ross, as we were preparing to go play the 49ers in San Francisco. And we ended up knocking them off. They were the number 1 seed that year. That was one of the great memories I have of those Viking years. And so the Lions, you could take it anyway, but I'm sure they're going to play hard. They know this is kind of their last gasp, and for them to have any chance to return to the playoffs, they have to win this game.
Yeah, and I also very quickly, Jeff, before we get to Dan Campbell, I think you alluded to something that is just spot on. They need to come out. They know it's the old adage, the old cliche, backs against the wall, right? The Vikings, feels like the Vikings might need to survive the first quarter a little bit when they play on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that Christmas game is going to be very interesting, and I think it'll be exciting, just as the last game was exciting. Dan Campbell talked a little bit about that last game and about playing the Vikings on a short week.
Short week. These guys won 3 in a row. Finding ways to win, playing really good defense and, controlling the ball over there offensively, a little more ground and pound and play action, So got our hands full, but it's what we're charged with, next one up.
Playing an opponent a second time. What's the point of emphasis when you look at that first game and the loss there? What's the thing that's top of your list of this is what we have to do better to beat this team this time around? Well,
I mean, we had some penalties that killed us. We had a lot of MAs, and we turned the ball over. Had a blocked field goal, So there was a number of things we did in that game that, that were self-induced, so we got to be really disciplined, play disciplined football on the road. It's going to be loud there. And the things we can't control, we have to control them, let's take care of that. And then we can play Minnesota.
So before we hear from Jared Goff and Ross and I make our predictions and go around the NFL, let's hear again from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication. A dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering. To building upon prior knowledge, year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $46.92. See your Select Minnesota GMC dealers. Only on 5.3-liter V8 engine for purchase allowance. Length of contract limited. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/26.
So a couple other keys to this game that we're going to hear from Jared Goff. Obviously, we talked about the turnover battle. That's going to be critical. Kind of odd that the Vikings have been -1 in turnovers the last 2 games and still won. Not a good formula going forward. And so the Vikings certainly have to protect the football and try to get some takeaways against Detroit. Pressuring Jared Goff into mistakes is going to be a key. Running the ball, controlling the clock, keeping that Lions offense off the field, always going to be a key in this game. As I mentioned, the Vikings outrushed the Lions last time. Aaron Jones has had some good games against Detroit, including the last game where he had a 8.7 rushing average against Detroit. Certainly, the Lions come off a bad game in run defense. Getting the ball out quick, whoever's playing quarterback. We saw some really effective screens to Jefferson in the Giants game, and he has some great run after catch. Get the ball to him. No drops, receivers. Come on, fellas, catch the ball. Again, containing Gibbs and Montgomery, the run game, and then pressuring Goff. 5 sacks last time, and I think you're going to see a heavy dose of blitzes. Goff has played pretty well against the Vikings blitz in the past, but not in that first game this year. But I really expect Brian Flores to go after him hard, especially with Cashman and Wilson inside against Gibbs. And then covering those talented receivers, St. Brown, Jameson Williams. There's no Sam Laporta. That's been a big loss for Detroit at tight end, a Pro Bowler. And limiting the penalties. Dan Campbell talked about the Lions had a bunch the last time. The Vikings had a bunch last week, 11. Luckily for them, the Giants also had 11. But the 2 games before, only 3 penalties each game. They need to get back to that formula. And then special teams, I think Will Reichert can outkick Jake Bates. He's got 6 misses on the year, Bates. And Will Reichert, as I said, only 2, and 1 probably hit the wire. And then no special teams miscues by Miles Price. He did a nice job last week catching the ball in the windy stadium at the Meadowlands. So Jared Goff, he's talking about handling the pressure from that Viking defense that sacked him 5 times last time.
Moving the ball, finding ways to move the ball a little bit more efficiently. Obviously want to run the ball a little bit better and be able to move the ball in the passing game, exploit some of their pressures and whatnot, and see if we can find some openings.
You guys have had some success against that Flores defense in the past. What do you feel like held you back from moving the ball more efficiently, more consistently last time?
I don't know if I remember specifically. I'd have to go back and really go through that game, but I remember their pressures were doing a good job getting home. I don't think we really threw it or ran it very well, to be honest, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, again, exploiting their pressures if they want to bring the pressures, and then finding ways to find openings in the running game.
Okay, Ross, so in the Christmas spirit, and happy holidays to everybody, certainly. Let's see if the Vikings can get some Christmas spirit going with the crowd at US Bank Stadium on Thursday. It's a 3:30 start, I think, or 3:25. And so I think the crowd will be pretty amped up, and that could help the Vikings against that Lions offense, and especially the offensive line that has been hampered this year by the retirement of Frank Ragnow, the Chanhassen native, multi-Pro Bowl player. I think that's had a big effect on their team. Kevin Zeitler left in free agency. The Lions just not as stout running the ball or in pass protection as they've been in the past, missing those guys, especially Ragnow. So, Ross, I'm gonna let you go first in this prediction segment. As my Christmas gift to you, you go first.
You are so kind. I was going to try and put Santa Claus in your name somehow, but I can't do it. This game is just so tough to read for many reasons. I like that the Vikings are at home on a short week. I don't like that we don't know the quarterback situation. I also like that the Lions defense is horribly inept. And I know the Vikings defense at times can look that way, but again, we didn't even talk about this. They haven't allowed a passing touchdown in 6 weeks. I don't know how. I don't want to be doom and gloom. This feels like a game that the Lions win very closely. But also, Jeff, it has just kind of been that year for the Lions where it feels like maybe it comes to an end with a crashing thud and the Vikings win like 30-13. But I'm going to take the Lions in a close one, 27-24.
Okay, well, I think you and I are on the same wavelength. I think the game is obviously more critical for Detroit, even though the Vikings would love to sweep the series and knock off a rival and knock them out of the playoffs and all that. But as we said, as you said, with the quarterback situation, whether it's McCarthy with a injured hand or whether it's Brosmer, I just think that you talk about the edge of quarterback and Jared Goff, even if he was sacked a bunch last time, he still threw for over 280 against the Vikings and he had a big game against Pittsburgh last week. But if the Lions can't run the ball and if the Vikings shut them down, it's going to be tough for Detroit. I see a close game like you do. I'm going to pick Detroit 28-27. Very close game. I think it'll be a very exciting game. And as we said, it could go either way. I would feel better about it if McCarthy plays with the momentum that he has from recent weeks. But I don't know. I have a hunch we're not going to see him this week. Maybe against Green Bay, but we'll see how it shakes out. And
at least we were both positive that the game will be worth watching, Jeff.
Yeah,
So
I think it definitely will be. And we go around the NFL kind of quickly. There's some big games. Certainly, the Bears have a tough test at San Francisco. The 49ers are still in the race for the NFC West title. I think Chicago's going to have a hard time winning that game, so that'll keep Green Bay alive. And I think the Packers will take care of Baltimore in Green Bay on Saturday night, although Jordan Love is in concussion protocol, so it might be Malik Willis. But Lamar Jackson also got hurt in the game against New England, so it could be Tyler Huntley. So we'll see. But Baltimore's just been a mess. That's one of the games the Vikings should have won here. I like Green Bay in that game. I like the San Francisco 49ers in that game on Sunday against the Bears. Other big games, Seattle's at Carolina. That's a huge game. Philly at Buffalo. So some big matchups. Saturday night, Denver at Kansas City. Denver tries to rebound on Christmas night from their loss in against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sneaky good team this year in the AFC. So we will be back on Monday to break down Vikings and Lions and get ready for Packer Week as the Vikings will host the Packers in Week 18. And this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday, occasionally Wednesdays during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond with Ross Brenda. We wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will be back with you on Monday.